let us have a look at video. That's my big segue. Let's look at
good pitch.
Video.
Video, go.
Bradbury Group. There's this young fella called Bomber Bradbury. You know, he's an upcoming broadcaster. We should probably, give him some help here to there. He did a new show last night called the Bradbury Group. Interesting conversations on the Bradbury Group about budgetary issues and the budget. There was also this conversation from John Tamihere. He was talking about how the C word, the use of the C word in the House, has very easily been swept under the carpet. And actually, when you hear the gravitas that JT puts to that word being used for the first time ever in any Commonwealth Parliament, you do kind of take a step back and go, yeah, actually, we don't, so much of a fuss was made about a journalist writing about it, but this MP actually saying it in the House, we seem okay with that.
The level of the punishment is the key, not your view of whether there was a breach or not. The issue that I find remarkable in all this is the C word can be premeditatedly dragged into the House. First time in the Commonwealth's history,
right,
that a minister of the Crown walks in there in a premeditated way and lays the C word on it, and that's not. There's no decorum there.
Right.
That's not dragging parliamentary practices down. That's worse than any hucker ever made, is what Van Velden, or whatever her name is, her Van Velden, ever got up to, right?
Yep.
Now the issue is that's swept under the carpet. It's a nice white woman. But if a brown woman had ever voiced the same thing, all hell would have broken loose.
Not if she got the Speaker's permission beforehand, and that was probably a mistake by the Speaker. And
Now, I didn't know this. That says to me that Brooke Van Velden went to Jerry Brownlee and said, "Can I say it?" And he said, "Yep." That's another conversation altogether. I mean, these guys are standing on almost morality at the standard that needs to be kept in the House for people getting out of a seat. Yet the Speaker's okay to authorize, there's probably 2 or 3 words that we don't particularly care about here, but 2 or 3 words that are sort of the worst words in the English language. That would be one of them. I know when I was working in radio, basically my boss said, never the C word, never the N word. Those 2 are the ones that we will be before a tribunal for. Now, that's because radio has some rules and stuff, but, they're in there. That was, I won't tangent. So it is interesting that all the pearl clutching going on about the journalist, not the Labour MP, the journalist who used it in a column. And actually, think about it now, not a sausage, not a whisper, not a nothing about an authorised use of it by a minister of the Crown in the House. And it's the first time it's ever been uttered in the Commonwealth by any minister of any Commonwealth country. Which has more gravitas?
If it was almost for anything else, I'd be proud. Like a New Zealand flag fluttering behind me. Pokara Kariana surging in the background. A New Zealand parliamentary, the first person to say it in a legislator in the world. I'd be proud, chat. But I can't be proud now because it's Brooke Van Velden.
Yeah, but it's that kind of thing that I don't do whataboutism. So I'm not going, well, what about? I'm going, we are giving so much attention to a journalist, a third party, someone not, and when I say we, I mean them in Parliament, using the word as a shock factor tactic in an article. But like JT said, it's fine for this minister of the Crown, this representative of New Zealand, this honourable person to be the first person in history to be a minister in a Commonwealth country and use it in the House. I'm just, I think that we should measure things on on how serious they are. Journalist, clickbaity bit of, down here, minute and nothing. Nothing. I mean, to his credit, he got up from the crypt for a second, and Winston said some negative things about using it in the in the House, but nothing. No one cares. All the people on social media who have been going hard nuts about the use of it in a newspaper and blaming Labour for it. Nothing. Silence. What are they called? What, tumbleweeds? They call them rumbleweeds. That would be a right-wing tumbleweed. Would be a rumbleweed. This has got just 20 seconds to go.
But there is an issue.
Is that a showboat?
You're absolutely right about the punishments. And the thing is, Parliament, the punishments are ridiculous.
Yes.
I mean, the Muldoon, it seems to me it's similar to Muldoon. Muldoon abused the Speaker, wouldn't show up. It seems about 3 days seems right. And I do believe that people can express great anger in Parliament. Now,
then he goes on to telling a story from 1929, and I know that he may have been alive there with Winston Peters, but we're not going to ingest that. I'm going to kind of keep trucking, Joey, because we've got a few things to get through here, because this is I did play a bit of this last night, but I want to play it again now. Because remember, Matthew Hooton is a Conservative former advisor to the National Party. It's where he sits politically. I have no idea who he'd vote for. He might be a non-voter, or maybe he grits his teeth and votes for New Zealand First or something. I don't know. I feel pretty assured he's not voting for National at the moment. But he explains about the budget tomorrow. And I played a bit of this last night, but it's worth hearing again.
Matthew, you have been singular in your focus, warning of the overspending. Has Nicola slashed enough, or does the altar of Milton Friedman cry out for more fresh blood?
well, I think first thing is she will spend more than any finance minister in New Zealand's history. She will tax more than any finance minister in New Zealand's history, and she'll borrow an ample amount. That
I think one of the things that stands out to me most and more is she will tax more. You know, there is this narrative about the left being tax happy, yet Matthew Hooton is saying we will find out tomorrow that Nicola Willis is taxing this country more than any minister of finance in history. Now, whether he's proven true or not, I guess time will tell. But if that comes out, that's why you need to be here at 2:00 tomorrow afternoon to hear Craig. Because if that comes out to be the case, we figured out last time they did this, they borrowed more than 5 out of 6 of Grant Robertson's budgets. If they're going to tax more as well, Chewie, you said something like this last night, that these guys are spinning so much shit, but people are believing it. It's just going to be a job for us for the next 14 months to make sure people hear and understand what actually happens tomorrow, not what they want the narrative to be of what happens tomorrow.
Well, be right up there with Grant Robertson, Muldoon, or Bill English at his worst. So let's just understand that it's not that the total amount the government's going to spend is declining. On the construction issue, the problem there is not that they cut the funding so much as they got rid of the pipeline. Now they're trying to build a new one, and everyone left. It wasn't that the government cut the money; it was that they stopped the project. Anyway,
no, the government cut the money. Trust me.
So what we've got is a government that's going to spend more than ever, tax more than ever, and borrow as much as the worst, and a decision just simply has to get made. Are we going to cut into the welfare state, particularly superannuation and tertiary healthcare? If yes, okay, that's the approach we're going. And I think the country could decide, okay, that's the way we're going, and a leader could sell that, and it could work. Or we're going to have to raise tens of billions of dollars of tax.
Amen.
And we're going to need a leader who can sell that, not the rubbish we heard.
So that basically, remember, Matthew was sort of just stating the facts. What's going to happen tomorrow is they're either going to cut more or they're going to try and find more revenue from taxing more. Now, of those two options, we know what they're going to do. So Hooton's basically saying tomorrow they're going to cut more.
Heard from Chris Hipkins, I'm sorry to say, because I love to speak today, you just can't. The maths is the maths. And we've been warned about this since the baby boomers failed to have enough kids.
Yep.
We knew what 2030 would mean. Michael Cullen, and before him, Winston Peters, Bill Birch, and Ruth Richardson had got us in a position where we were meant to have 20% of GDP or thereabouts in the bank by 20.
This is terrifying. So the plan from Cullen in the first decade of this was to have in the bank 20% of GDP. Do you know how much we've got? Hooton's going to tell you. So remember, it should be plus 20%.
2030. Instead, we're going to reach 2030, something like 30% in the red. So we're 50% roughly. I mean, these numbers aren't exactly right, 50, but a very large amount of GDP coming up to 50% of GDP in the wrong direction from where we were supposed to if Michael Cullen's plan had been continued with. And this is a serious problem, and there is no point people thinking that cutting more tea room people in Wellington makes a difference.
Follow-up question. There is a rumour that a former right-wing female politician sent Nicola Willis and Brooke Van Velden a bouquet of flowers after announcing the pay parity kneecapping. Can you confirm, was that former right-wing female politician Ruth Richardson?
I don't know anything about a bouquet of flowers.
I can confirm.
Did the flowers wither as soon as they...
I think Ruth's pretty critical of the current finance minister for the overspending.
I actually don't know whether that's a joke or not, but if that's the truth, Ruth Richardson sent Brooke Van Velden a bouquet for cancelling pay parity for hundreds of thousands of women. That's and remember, if that's the case, we're comparing Nicola Willis to Ruth Richardson. She's Ruth Richardson 2.0, the mother of all budgets. And that's if that's the case. And I mean, JT said, yes, I can confirm. So, and that means that she is excited that hundreds of thousands of women have just lost pay parity. And many of those ones won't be able to apply for it again because of the new criteria to reach parity. Chewie.
Yeah. Ruth Richardson left scars on this country that still exist. Ruth Richardson is currently involved with Atlas. Nicola Willis has been involved with the New Zealand Initiative and Atlas. So, you know, crazy us drawing straight lines between things. I find Matthew Hooton a really interesting dude.
Because you agree with what he said, don't you?
There is stuff that I am sure I am vehemently opposite him on. But I can appreciate the position that he has and what he's saying. He is identifying key things that many people, including me, have said. This is one of the reasons why I will scream until the heat death of the universe that National has done more economic damage to this country than any other issue in our history. National got rid of our first super fund that had cost trillions of dollars.
Thanks, Muldoon.
They took an axe to the Cullen Fund. And again, this is a multi-person, multi-government fucking idea from looking at a graph and looking at birth rates and going, shit, if we want the superannuation scheme to keep going, we need to get ahead of the drop in population, the drop in birth rate. Okay, so people were looking at it and going, well, we've identified the problem. And then every time National has got to power and has been passed this big kitty of money, they've gone, shit, this would really solve some more immediate problems. And we'll just worry about the other stuff down the line. Those little things, those small tax increases, or just letting tax do its job to build that fund up, we wouldn't be having debates about whether we have to work until our mid-70s like they're trying to soft sell at the moment. Personally, I think if they try to move the retirement age, we take a book out of the French big book of what we do when the government fucks with us.
That's what the big book of droppy knives. That one, big book of heavy droppy knives.
It's just a diagram of going to fight the police in the streets. These guys have the solutions. They know the problems. They get the data. They're supposed to make decisions that will hold water longer than their time in politics. All parties should have seen this, and every time National has got there, they have raided the kitty, which is exactly what Nicola Willis is doing now. They're looking at the super fund. They're going, that's a useful amount of money that we can invest in New Zealand startups and that sort of thing. That sounds great. What that actually is funneling public money to private hands, and it might pay off or it might not. But they are doing that with our retirement fund. They are going to turn around and tell someone that's been a bricklayer or a tradie for his whole life, no, your knees are shot, your back shot, you got to keep working because we raided the piggy bank. They're going to turn to Māori and go, we know a bunch of you are never going to get there. So what?
Yeah.
They're going to cut, they're going to borrow, they're going to gut our public service, they're going to gut our institutions, and they're still going to borrow, and they're still going to spend. And people are still going to believe that this government is delivering meaningful tax cuts. All I can tell you is my grocery bill's gone up, my rates have gone up, my power's gone up, everything's gone up. And they're doing a victory lap saying that they've solved inflation and they're laser focused on the cost of living. How can we trust a single thing that they're going to say tomorrow?
Yeah.
It'll be bad. And I still don't trust that what they tell us is the truth. It'll be worse.